Hello, everybody, and greetings from Deakin University. No matter where you are right now, here in Victoria, in Australia, or overseas, we're delighted to have you with us. We're proud to be part of this virtual open day session, and thanks for joining us and for your interest in Deakin. Welcome to all of you. At Deakin, we know that the future belongs to the ready, and we are here today to ensure you understand your writing, literature, and gender and sexuality studies options through our brand new Bachelor of Arts and through the Bachelor of Creative Arts as well. My name is Paul, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Professor Anne Vickery, Professor David McCooey, and Associate Professor Christine Maruzzi. Welcome, everyone. We'll chat again very soon. At Deakin, we begin formal university meetings and events with an acknowledgement of country. This is a message to show that as an organisation, we recognise that we work and learn on traditional Indigenous lands. It's our way of paying our respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students who join us at Deakin University or may be in our audience at the moment. We are mindful and respectful that our First Nations people are the traditional custodians of this country, and that we work and live in a place that has always valued teaching and learning. Now down to the business of the day. So what's going to be in the session today? Today we're going to talk about the areas of writing, literature, and gender and sexuality studies. And we'll begin by chatting with Professor David McCooey about creative and professional writing. Then I'll be having a chat about literature and children's literature and gender and sexuality studies with Anne and Chris. And then we're going to have a chat about how to apply for those things and a quick look at some further study options for you as well. But without further ado, let's talk about stories. Stories aren't straight lines, and indeed, in writing and literature at Deakin, we value the idea of stories being able to take us to lots of different and fascinating places. And one of the ways to engage with that through study is through creative writing. Welcome, David.
Thanks, Paul.
So, David, creative writing is a really strong part of our offering in writing and literature, isn't it? What are the sorts of things that students do as part of doing study in creative and professional writing?
Thanks, Paul. Yes, it is a very strong part of our group, and the things that students can expect are a whole sort of suite of things which will allow them to build very strong technical and creative skills, but also skills in terms of professionalization, in terms of understanding the process of publishing, of taking your work out into the public, and also of going beyond, potentially beyond the purely literary realm into thinking about how you can use the skills you use in writing in other non-literary ways, such as speech writing, for instance.
Because it's so important, isn't it, in so many of the jobs that young people, in fact, anybody takes up, we really need to know how to write, don't we?
Absolutely. And in fact, one of the things that's very important to keep in mind, I think, even as the internet has taken over the world and we have all of these terrific multimedia platforms available to us, is that we still need writers, whether that's writing for games or writing for podcasts or what have you. So just because the book now has all sorts of other forms of competition, it doesn't mean that writers are no longer in the system. In fact, if anything, I would say there are more opportunities for writers in the current state of play.
David, so there are a couple of different options for studying creative writing, aren't there, at Deakin? So perhaps we'll talk about the first option here, and that's as part of the Bachelor of Creative Arts.
Yes, the Bachelor of Creative Arts, which brings together, as the title suggests, all sorts of creative arts. So if you can study creative writing or writing in the Bachelor of Creative Arts and be aware that you're also going to be studying with film students, drama students, dance students, and of course you can then take on some of those other disciplines yourself potentially. So let's say you're interested in writing and film, then something like the Bachelor of Creative Writing is perfect for you because you can do a major in both of those disciplines. In the Bachelor of Creative Arts, or the BCA as we call it, we have two major sequences. So that's basically a course of units or subjects which make up what we call a major. And the first one is writing and the second one is publishing, and you could do one or both of those. The writing one, as it suggests, concentrates mostly on the writing of, script, poetry, fiction, creative non-fiction. The publishing one is more professionally based, looking at things like editing and publication and so forth. And as I said, you could take both majors if you wanted to get both those sides of things happening on your resume. We also have,
there are going to be some people that are going to really jump in and want to do it all, aren't they? They could potentially do those two majors together. Yeah, they
could. That's right, absolutely. And as I said, you may also have another discipline under your, under your hat or whatever that you're interested in too. And as I was saying at the beginning, they go so well with film, with dance, with drama, because all of those other creative practices require writers at some stage of their process.
Absolutely. So there's a second way that you can do creative writing as part of a degree as well, and that's through the Bachelor of Arts, isn't it?
Correct, yes. And the Bachelor of Arts, as the title suggests, is a more generalist course. So instead of having all of those other creative arts things there, you could be studying creative writing in conjunction with, say, something like philosophy or history or literature or children's literature. So in the Bachelor of Creative Arts, we call the major or the minor, which is a smaller version of the major, as you'd imagine, creative writing, and that brings together a bit of both of those majors that I was talking about. So you will have both the creative side of things and the professional side of things coming together in that major.
And for students who are sort of unaware of the language, future students that are unaware of some of the language that might be using, when we talk about a major and a minor, we're talking about specializations, aren't we?
Correct.
So if you're doing a major, you're doing a bigger specialization, minor slightly smaller, and you can make some combinations of majors and minors as well.
That's right. And that's the beauty of the Bachelor of Arts and also the Bachelor of the Creative Arts, is that you're the one who chooses. So if you want to do creative writing with journalism, which makes a whole lot of sense because they're both about writing, then you can. It's entirely up to you how you put together those big building blocks of majors and minors.
There are some fundamental skills, aren't there, that kind of add to employability, to work readiness, that come from doing something like creative writing or professional writing?
Absolutely, yes. So whilst something like creative writing, unlike, say, dentistry, is not going to make it obvious where you're going to go in terms of employment, the kinds of skills that you get are deeply transferable, as we call them. You can use them in all sorts of contexts. And year after year in surveys, employers ask, when they're asked what they look for in new employees, they look for people who are good communicators and are creative. Now, of course, they're the two things you're going to get in something like creative writing. You learn how to use language and text and all that sort of stuff to the highest kind of degree possible. And you also learn about how to do those things in a creative way, to do things in an innovative way, to do things slightly differently from how things have been done before. And of course, employers love that kind of skill.
Absolutely. David, just as I'm moving on, before we talk about the kinds of hands-on experience we might get, one of the things that I forgot to mention from one of the earlier slides is the sort of people that are teaching in creative writing at Deakin and the kinds of examples that they're setting. I know that you're a fantastic poet, and we have quite a few poets on staff, don't we, that students would be writing with, but also people who've published in things like, say, young adult fiction, for example.
Yes, we do have. I guess the main point to come from that is the people who teach in the course are themselves writers. So we have professional experience ourselves. So yes, we have poets, we have people who've worked in script, in fiction and creative non-fiction, and not only that, they also have a very strong standing in terms of literary culture more generally. So they will know publishers, they will know other writers, they will have had experience judging literary awards and being reviewers and so forth. So they have a strong sense of the connection between being a writer as a sort of solitary thing that you do at home, being creative, and being a writer as a kind of public role, which involves you getting out there and doing things with other writers and other creative people.
And part of getting out there is the opportunity to contribute to a literary journal like Veranda. Tell us about Veranda, David.
Veranda is a long-standing international literary journal, as it says there, which is published annually. It's been going for more than 3 decades, and it is student-run. We do have a board with staff members on the board to help with the running, but every year we have a new team of students who undertake the editing and the design and everything to do with the production of the journal. And it concentrates not just on literary writing, but also visual arts. And we always have some of the visual arts people on board as well in terms of the editorial team. And you learn not just about editing, but also about design, about marketing, about launching a journal, all of these sorts of things, which are fantastic things to have on your CV if you're interested in any kind of career that involves writing or creativity.
And I've just moved the slide along to show that there's also the Worldly magazine that's published that presents another opportunity for students to get their work out there, doesn't it?
It does, and this one is sort of even more student-led, I guess, and it's another opportunity, and I probably didn't make this point strongly enough about Veranda, is Veranda and Wordly means that students who do creative writing at Deakin University have a platform to get work published. So by the time you finish your degree, it's quite possible that you can already say to people, yes, I've already got some work published. So obviously publication is, if you're wanting to be on the writing side of things, what you're aiming for.
Fantastic. And we've got some fantastic students that have come through this program, haven't we?
We do. We have lots of these sorts of success stories, I have to say, Paul, but Caitlin is a great example. She did a BA majoring in creative and professional writing, and in 2020, as it says here, her manuscript found again was shortlisted for the Penguin Literary Prize, which is a terrific thing to have happen to your work at that stage. And it can lead to all sorts of connections with, say, pitching to an agent if you wanted to get an agent, or taking your work to another publisher.
Yeah, pitching, it's such an important thing to learn and to practice, definitely. Moving along, we're going to talk a little bit more about English literature now, and I'm going to ask Anne Vickery to join me as we talk through this. And when I was at university and I did my undergraduate degree, I did a Bachelor of Arts, and I chose to do English literature. And I have a sneaking suspicion that you did as well. What is so great? Why would somebody go off and study literature at university?
I think a key difference from creative writing is that literary studies is developing critical skills, analytical skills that then can be applied more widely. You're introduced to theoretical frameworks to understand ways to understand authorship, to understand types of readers, audiences, the cultural context of production, and more importantly too, I think, to think about how literature is responding not only to its context of publication, but how it's and so it's historical context, but also how it's imagining and indeed transforming society. So its role as transformative.
And it really develops a number of skills, doesn't it? I mean, when we think about those, there are sort of creative thinking skills that come along with literary studies, but there are also those kind of critical literacy skills, the ability to kind of analyze, understand stories, connect them to the politics of the day, connect them to history and so forth. And the other thing that I think is important to note is how, studying English literature, really connects outwards to things like children's literature as well, back towards creative writing too, doesn't it?
It does. And I would also say that students at Deakin will engage with a really broad range of literatures, from Shakespeare and understanding its role in global context, environmental literature, popular fiction such as fantasy literature, Australian literature and Indigenous literatures alongside and within that. And so we are exposing them to understanding how different kinds of literatures respond to different, go out to different audiences.
I mean, we haven't put up names of individual sort of subjects that students might go and study here, but oh my goodness, there are some fantastic ones there. I mean, look, fantasy literature is such a popular one. There's another great one called Classics and Trash, which, right, is pretty much what it says it is, which is fantastic. But yeah, it does show the kind of breadth that's available to people, whether it's that concentration on kind of, local literatures or something like Shakespeare as well. So there's a broad range, and students are, they might like to go and visit our writing and literature blog. All you have to do is put in writing and literature blog Deakin, and you'll find it on the internet very easily. And there'll be some more information there about the kinds of things that we teach, and in fact, the people that would be teaching in those areas too. And I'm very conscious that we're also partnered with some fantastic organizations, and a journal like Overland as well, which our prospective students may have heard of, and some fantastic writers' festivals too, aren't we?
Yeah, that's right. So we are partnered with Overland. So beyond Veranda and Worldly, there are opportunities for students to work with the sort of editing and of Overland and getting published in there. We have connections with international festivals like Jaipur Literary Festival, local festivals like Local World Word Showcase and Melbourne Writers Festival. And we have a number of partners with other organisations, such as the Australian Lesbian and Gay Archives, Warrnambool Art Gallery, National Gallery of Victoria.
Yeah, there are lots of opportunities, aren't there, to get out there and get some hands-on experience and actually to apply those kind of critical and creative skills that we've been talking about. I want to move now to talk about children's literature. This is an area that's so close to my heart, and I want to welcome again my colleague Chris to help me to kind of talk a little bit about what we do in children's literature. Children's literature is a fantastic area of specialisation. We are the only university in Australia to offer a full major in children's literature. It's a very popular course of study to do. Chris, I mean, I can't help but be a little bit biased here because this is the area that I often teach into, but we do really have some fantastic units, subjects for study in children's literature. And also our team is really out there, isn't it, in terms of the scholarship that they do in this area.
Look, absolutely. I think a lot of people think, oh, children's lit, that's easy, right? Those books are simple, they're quick to read, right? But what we do when we study children's literature, particularly because we're housed within with literary studies and creative writing is really think through in more theoretical ways how writing for children is produced and the kinds of messages that are there. So much like Anne was saying in terms of literary studies, where books are written and published, or content texts are written and published within a context, we can kind of think about how ideas about children have changed over time. If we were to look at a book, I don't know, from days gone by, I don't know, what might you remember or might you have read, but like The Secret Garden, or maybe Anne.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah, right, exactly. So
The
ideas about children that are in those books are quite different from, let's say, the ideas about children that are found in the Lumberjanes. Now, I don't know if anybody's read that book, but it's this really interesting, diverse representation of girlhood that really is quite different from what we've seen in the past. So those are the kinds of questions we're really interested in engaging with, and then thinking through form and practice and what that means.
I want to, just let students know that, if you come and study children's literature, yes, you're going to be studying picture books, fabulous, and graphic narratives and young adult literature and all of that fantastic stuff that I know so many of you out there, are reading and consuming all the time. So it is a fantastic opportunity to do that. It's becoming, a more and more established, branch of study. And as part of that, both in terms of whether you do English literature or English children's literature, there are lots of employability options. This is a really, this is where we get a little bit real and we talk about what are the options of, if I'm going out there looking for a job. We know that our graduates, whether it's in literary studies or in children's literature, they're going off to do jobs as teachers, as public service, authors, editors, journalists, librarians, but so much more as well, because so many of those skills are really applicable in a whole lot of different areas. I certainly know people that have studied children's literature because they've gone off to become writers for children, but also through as a pathway to education and other forms of things like creative practice, because they're also interested in things like health and well-being, children and childhood. So there are lots of allied kind of opportunities there. But in terms of graduate opportunities, I mean, that relates, not just to children's literature, but to any of the areas that we've been talking about so far today. So just to kind of recap on what course do you study if you want to take creative writing, children's literature, or English literature, you can do creative writing in the Bachelor of Creative Arts or the Bachelor of Arts, children's literature and literature in the Bachelor of Arts. And we'll have a little bit more information about how to apply in just a moment. But I do also want to talk about gender and sexuality studies. And you might help me a little bit as I talk through this. But Gender and Sexuality Studies at Deakin is an interdisciplinary program. It studies sex, gender and sexuality, and it draws on local knowledges and histories, but also within the kind of global context of some of the big discourses, the big questions, issues and ideas that circulate around gender and sexuality, things like feminism, diversity, equity, inclusion, the Me Too movement, through to intersectionality. So really, this major is an opportunity to kind of focus in on this area of study. Yes, with the opportunity to also take up some of those units from a more kind of literary studies perspective that are embedded within that major as well, but also to branch that out towards a broader kind of discussion and interest in this part of kind of identity studies, if you will. And is there anything that you would add to that general description that I've given?
Yeah, I think it's a very interdisciplinary major to undertake. It moves into history, into social science. It looks at film and TV. So it really is one which is very broad ranging, and in some respects that does equip students with a sort of skill set that, as the slide's showing, really is really broad.
And I should say that you know, a lot of us that teach into this area do so from an interdisciplinary perspective. So Chris, you and I are very familiar with a unit called Gender and Sexuality in Text for Young People. Did I get that title right?
You sure did.
Aha, that's great. And we've edited a book recently, which is about sexuality in text for young people. So yes, there are different kind of approaches, but as this slide shows, there are lots of different kind of pathways out of a major like gender and sexuality studies, you know, into work, into kind of employability options.
And if I can just jump in too, I think one of the really interesting things that we've seen with students that are progressing through either the major or the minor in GSS is the allied, they'll be doing a major or minor in GSS and they'll be doing something else, right? So we've got students that are also doing, you know, a major in humanitarianism or international relations. So there's ways that, particularly within the Bachelor of Arts, this becomes quite an exciting opportunity where you take another disciplinary framework and kind of align it with GSS, and that kind of then opens up a whole world of different interesting opportunities.
Absolutely. And I think creative writing is an interesting one that often gets paired with GSS as well. Yeah. We have work integrated learning opportunities. So, you know, the ability, I think we spoke about them a little bit before, so I'm not going to spend too long on this slide. I mean, this is a great photo from the Jaipur Literary Festival back in the day when we were able to travel a little bit more. Let's hope that those opportunities open up again really soon. But yes, there are opportunities for those placement-oriented experiences as well.
And that really just, I know we're running out of time, but that really applies to everybody, no matter what discipline you're interested in. We've got a really active work integrated learning ethos here, and we're really trying to get everybody out there where they can. So definitely think about that for your study.
And our student course teams will be on hand to tell you a little bit more about that if you're interested. But here's a really important slide: how to apply to the courses that we're talking about.
Yeah, so just again, I would urge people to go and to that website about VTAC or direct applications as the two pathways.
Great. And there'll be some information for you as well if you're joining us as an international student. And I'll move quite quickly through because I don't want to miss out on talking to Chris about postgraduate study, because there are some fantastic opportunities for postgraduate study in writing and literature, aren't there?
Yeah, if you've gotten this far in our open day presentation, but you think that undergraduate study isn't quite right for you because you have some industry experience, or you already have an undergraduate degree of some sort, you might want to consider doing postgraduate study. We offer a graduate certificate, a graduate diploma, and a Master of Arts, which are all of sort of different lengths. And they offer the opportunity then to specialize in many of the same areas that we've just discussed at the undergraduate program. And the entry requirement, as I alluded to, is really you've got some industry experience in those areas, or you already have a bachelor's degree. And we do try and give you, or we try to recognize prior learning that you have that would then reduce the course length. So this might be an option for you, in which case, please go. I think, yes, there's a place to go to do a direct application.
And because this session is recorded, all of this information will be available to you, and our course teams will be standing by to tell you a little bit more about it as well. We have run out of time, but it's been a fantastic discussion today. I want to take a moment to thank Anne, to thank David, and to thank Chris for being here with us for this session today on writing, literature, and gender and sexuality studies, and indeed further study as well. Don't go away though, stay with us now, because we have a live Q&A session and we will be there to answer your questions as well. Thank you so much everybody for being with us today. My name is Paul Venzo. I hope to see you very soon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Paul Venzo, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Bachelor of Arts and Course Director for Writing, Literature and Gender and Sexuality Studies here at Deakin University. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're here to take all of your fantastic questions about writing, literature and gender and sexuality studies. And I am joined by a fabulous panel. So let me introduce them to you now. I have with me today Professor Anne Vickery. Hello, Anne. Professor David McCooey. Hello, David. Associate Professor Christine Maruzzi. And our wonderful student ambassador, who is a student with us in writing and literature, Tom Morton. G'day, Tom. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before I get stuck into your questions today. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a little chat function. So we ask you to put your questions for us into that chat function. But we also have a live Q&A session, a web chat function as part of the live Q&A session that will continue throughout this session and afterwards as well. And that's where you can get in touch with any specific questions that you might have, particularly about enrolment. And that's also the case for our international students. We have a great team behind the scenes who will also be answering some questions on chat. We will do our very best to get to everybody's questions today, but if we can't, rest assured that our course advisors, our student advice teams are there to help you with your questions, and they can give you advice as well. And of course, if you have other questions that you'd like to ask me or other members of the writing and literature team, you can always get in touch with us via email at any time. So let's get straight to the questions. And David, you are first up today because I have a great question about creative writing. And Thomas has asked us, can you combine doing creative writing and children's literature at Deakin?
That's a great question, as you say. And the simple answer is yes, you absolutely can. One of the great strengths, really, I think, of creative writing at Deakin is that it is so easy to pair with other things which may go well with it, like children's literature or literature generally, if you're interested in the wider scope of that. But also even beyond those to other disciplines, gender and sexuality, but beyond that as well. So yes, it's very flexible, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say.
It's almost like I wrote that question myself, because you know that being a creative writer that works in children's literature, I love that idea that you could combine the two. And we've also stacked the decks a little bit today because our student ambassador, Tom, is also studying in children's literature. Tom, what drew you to study in that area?
Well, the most impactful thing when I was choosing a university was looking at my majors. So I've decided to major in children's literature, and that can only be done at Deakin, I believe, in Australia. We're the only university with that major.
That's right. I mean, it's pretty incredible, isn't it? Oh, look, here's an opportunity for me to throw to Chris, who works with me in children's literature as well. Chris, you know, we have a lot of students for whom this is, a really unique opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. As Tom nicely announced for us, we are the only major in children's lit in Australia. We've got a range of really interesting scholars. Paul here, who's a creative writer. My colleague Sue is really interested in kind of transnationalism in children's literature and also translation. And then I'm really interested in representations of gender and sexuality, and I know that's an interest of yours too, Paul. Right? So we are a nice complementary team, I think, that brings a range of different kinds of expertise to the classroom, and it means that for students who are thinking about children's lit, we can really bring an interesting and varied kind of critical lens to literature for children. And I see that there's a question from Sylvia there, so I might just answer since I'm talking. And Sylvia asked what sorts of books we teach, and I'll get Tom to pipe in about this in a second. But one of the intents in our range of units on offer is to really give you exposure to quite a wide range. So we don't just look at picture books or junior fiction or young adult, but we're also looking at graphic narratives, and we're looking at film and TV occasionally. So we're just the range of texts that children are exposed to today. Tom, would you like to say anything else?
Yeah. I look, I absolutely enjoy every book that we've read through. Like, I love the fact that I can tell my friends, yep, this week I'm reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I'm looking at representations of masculinity within that. Or I'm reading short stories written by queer people in Australia. And these are the sorts of, diverse books and texts that we engage with every week. It's something new, it's something fresh, and we get to look at it with a really good critical lens.
Tom, were there any particular books that stood out? I mean, you've mentioned a couple there. I'm a big picture book fan. Have you become a picture book fan after doing some study in this area?
I actually sort of have. In my first year, actually, we looked at Where the Wild Things Are, which is a book that I read growing up, but I never read into it with such a critical lens. And that's probably one of my favorites that I go back and revisit with a new light now,
That's fantastic. Look, that's a good opportunity for me to ask you, Anne, about the kind of breadth of the text that students might encounter if they were to do English literature with us at Deakin, because I know that just like in children's literature, where a broad range of forms are covered, types of literature, there's also a really amazing thematic range, isn't there?
Yeah, that there is. I was thinking as you were talking about children's literature and the range from picture books to YA, and Thomas's question about creative writing and how we have staff, apart from yourself, sort of focusing on picture books and writing for children at picture book stage, but people like Jodie McAllister writing YA romance fiction as well. So we have practitioner staff who are making that, crossing between creative writing and children's literature. But I was thinking too, as you were talking, that we cover graphic narratives as well. And so that at first year level, you'd be doing genre fiction from, horror and gothic like Dracula, traditional romance like Jane Eyre, science fiction, detective fiction, but moving into things like modernism and postmodernism, major aesthetic movements in second year, also looking at Shakespeare and its film and book adaptations at third year. We look at debates around what's a classic, what's trash, does it matter? But also, covering those texts that you might never sort of like think to read as well, that we cover, sort of everything from, The Handmaid's Tale, Kafka's Metamorphosis, to something like, sort of fantasy series such as the Mistborn series and Naomi Novik.
I don't know whether Game of Thrones is still a part of fantasy literature, but I know that was a super popular text some time ago when I was talking to some students about it. I mean, it's one of the wonderful things, isn't it, that blend and of the kind of what we might call the canon or the classics that people have traditionally thought, oh, well, that's what you must study if you study literature. And then, being able to take, as Tom was saying, a critical lens to texts that you mightn't even think, would be available for study for you.
That's right. And also thinking about their reception both historically, but also geographically. What does it mean to read something like Jane Eyre in England versus Jane Eyre in the Caribbean, for instance?
Absolutely. I don't want to miss out on going back to one of the questions that I can see in there from Penny, who asked, can you do a gender and sexuality studies as an elective for any bachelor? Well, we can do even better than that. So you can do gender and sexuality studies as a full major with Deakin, can't you, Anne?
Absolutely. So you can do it alongside another major as well. And you can go on into honours and PhD in that gender and sexuality studies. Yeah, so we start, you get introduced to thinking about gender and sexuality issues today, their representations, media debates, and then moving into sort of like historical developments, introduction to sort of feminism, queer theory, trans theory, but also what does it mean to work with gender and sexuality issues in the workplace as well.
I think, you know, if I was a creative writing student and I was interested in doing, you know, work in gender and sexuality studies, is there a way of kind of combining that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you could do a creative writing major and a gender and sexuality studies major. That would work quite well. And you know, there are sort of like, you would be looking at sort of aspects of writing in the gender and sexuality studies major. There are creative options in terms of assessment.
David, I want to turn to you because we've had some questions come through and I'll try and combine them into one, just to ask you about the sorts of creative writing that students might do, because of course we have creative writing in a Bachelor of Creative Arts and in the Bachelor of Arts as well. I know it's a big question to ask, but if I was a student coming to do creative writing, what sort of creative writing can I try my hand at?
That's a really good question as well, Paul. Basically, you know, the world's your oyster, really. Just as there's a very large, you know, range in the children's literature and the English, you know, hyphen literature section, we really cover everything from your basic sort of traditional, you know, modes or genres, from fiction, poetry, script writing, to more emergent forms such as graphic work. We, of course, you know, we also look at digital writing as well. There's a unit on writing for games. So we really cover writing from, you know, the most traditional to the most contemporary forms that you can imagine. And in terms of the 2 degrees that you mentioned, in the Bachelor of Creative Arts, you can concentrate on writing. You can do a major in writing, and you can also do a major in publishing. So you could bring together the craft elements of all the things I was just talking about, but also a more professional side of things in terms of editing, you know, getting projects going, you know, being in the workplace, all of those sorts of professionalizing things. You can bring those 2 together. In the Bachelor of Arts, there's a more general kind of approach in terms of focusing on the writing with some of that professionalization in there.
Yeah, and I suppose in a Bachelor of Arts, then you could go and combine it with, you know, if you were to do a double major or to do your major and a minor with some other area of expertise. I was just thinking, as you were saying, you were talking about kind of professional writing, I suppose, and how people might actually use that, you know, were they to do a major in something like even sports journalism, for example, you know, that capacity to be able to write professionally is, you know, is absolutely essential to that, isn't it?
Absolutely, and I would argue, in fact, that the capacity to write at the highest level is something that employers in all areas really are looking for. It's not just for people who want to become novelists, for instance, or poets. Although if you are one of those people, you're welcomed here, that's for sure. But also, as you say, beyond that into other areas. I mean, we've known people who've gone on to work in government, speech writing, for instance. All of the things that you learn in creative writing or publishing are skills that can then work in other areas which aren't necessarily specific to being a creative writer.
Oh my goodness, David, you've opened the door for me to ask a question about employability, which is one of the questions that I think, I think it's got to be at the forefront of people's minds whenever they embark on any kind of, study or higher learning. So I want to I'm going to ask an open question. I will certainly jump in if nobody else does, but I wonder, Tom, you included, whether you've had the opportunity to do things like a placement or to think about furthering your study, actually going out and doing some hands-on learning. Anne and Chris, I know that you have, some interesting things to say about this too. So I'll open it up to whoever might wish to jump in for that question.
Yeah, well, I absolutely have been on the ball with wanting to get out and use lots of the skills that I've already picked up. So I have good relations with my past English and creative writing teachers. So each year when it comes up to exam time, when students are submitting folios of their work, I go into that classroom and use some, I suppose, teaching skills that I've learned in my degree as well. And I work with students on, proofreading their work, but also their creative process, making sure that they're able to look at their own work with that critical lens that I talked about. So that's been a really engaging and fun way that I can make my skills that I've learned here really employable in a classroom.
Tom, shout out to all of our English teachers. I think mine in high school were absolutely instrumental and really probably changed my life in really good ways too. And we have some great opportunities for students, don't we, in terms of, those kinds of work experiences?
Yeah, I was going to say we actually have internships both at undergraduate and postgraduate levels, and we have ones which can be done in one's local area, but ones that might be actually international as well. So, for instance, we have had people who have been doing editing internships that have been based in America, for instance. We have had people who've done events management, who've worked with writers' festivals, who have worked with libraries in terms of getting an exhibition together. And it is something which, there are plenty of opportunities across the different areas in our, writing, literature, and gender and sexuality studies. I don't know, Chris, if you wanted to say something about the postgraduate area.
Sure, I will, but first I actually want to jump in on the skill set that you developed through writing, literature, and GSS, because I am also, as Anne was suggesting, I'm the course director for the Master of Arts, and also I'm the coordinator for honors students. And I get lots of questions in both of those roles from students who are like, well, this is great, and I'm really excited by the prospect of kind of undertaking further study in writing and literature. But what will I do? Can I get a job, right? And the answer is yes, of course you will. And you'll get a great job, because the kinds of skills that you develop through this kind of study, doing something presumably you really actually enjoy, right? It is absolutely not to be underestimated, right? The ability to read and analyze and synthesize and then write are fundamental skills that will hold you in great stead no matter where you end up. And this is why, like Microsoft and those kind of big tech companies, they don't actually need to hire tech people. They need to hire, and they're hiring people with the kinds of skills that you develop in writing and lit and gender and sexuality studies, because that ability to think laterally and to think sort of sideways and outside the box is something that's actually much more difficult to teach than those technical skills. So look, I mean, I'm presumably speaking slightly to the converted right now, because at least all the people who are on this panel would presumably agree with me. But I really think that the things that you get to do in writing and literature and GSS are super exciting, because they really are, you get to do something that you're really quite enjoying, but then you're also developing this set of skills that can be sometimes a little bit difficult to articulate, I think, but are really actually phenomenal skills that will really treat you well as you go out into the workplace. Okay, now I'm off my soapbox. So we also offer a postgraduate suite of courses from a graduate certificate, which is quite short, up through a Master of Arts, where students who are undertaking the Masters get to undertake a research project. So there's lots of different, depending on kind of where you are in your academic journey, there's some other options available to you through Deakin as well. And I know that there's a question from two alumni who are interested in commencing a Master of Arts in creative writing, and that's certainly something you can basically begin any trimester. We'll welcome you anytime, and perhaps it might be best to just get in touch with me directly, kind of about what that would involve.
Just to tempt people, Chris, I know that you run an amazing unit in T3 that involves some international students, don't you? Can you tell us?
Oh yeah, look, I mean, in the postgrad space, I am super excited about this actually. In the postgrad space, we're developing this partnership with the University of Glasgow. So in T3 of this past year, so in February, we ran an intensive with students from the University of Glasgow on writing for children, and we had guest speakers. We had Scottish guest speakers as well as some Australian ones. Then we all got together and had just really quite a fabulous conversation about kind of international publishing for books and writing children's books, right? Which was super exciting. And we're offering, we're about to undertake Writing the City postgraduate unit that the University of Glasgow is going to offer. So there's some interesting things on that horizon that I'm excited to talk to people about if they're interested.
Tom, are we tempting you to stay on and do some further study when we're talking about that?
Look, you guys do not have to twist my arm anymore. I am loving my current studies, and obviously the option for honours or masters of a particular area in arts. I mean, it's very tempting, and it is likely something that I'll come back and do. Lots of educators and teachers end up doing honours of some sort, specialising even further in their area of interest, and that's absolutely up my alley. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Tom, I want to ask you, it's not exactly a technical question, but it's about the student experience, because I know that one of the things that Deakin does that other places don't do is this thing called the trimester system. So can you tell us, because I presume that you've done a unit in T3 before, what's it like to study 3 trimesters rather than 2 semesters, and particularly that T3 opportunity?
Yeah, well, it is something that's really unique about Deakin University, and it's something that I've used the past 2 years that I've been studying, actually. So something I've found that's really handy is last trimester 3, over this most recent summer, I did a unit called Reading the End of Nature. And so that's a literature studies unit. And that's where I was able to get a unit ahead, a unit, under my belt over the summer. That meant that in a future trimester, I'm able to actually take a unit off and do 3 units instead of the full-time 4. So it's giving yourself a bit of breathing room further down the line, but also it was getting myself ahead with some higher level learning when it was just the 1 unit on its own. So it meant that I was able to take a bit more time with things when it's only that 1 unit that I have to focus on and study.
And we've got some great writing, literature and GSS units in T3, don't we, Anne?
Yeah, so we have them, a first year unit available in all the areas, and we have Australian literature available at 2nd year, and Reading the End of Nature, which looks at literature and the environment at 3rd year. So yeah.
Now, I will kick myself if I don't quickly ask a question based on people asking about these kind of extra activities or opportunities that students might have. And it might be, I think, for you, Anne, and for David as well. We do have this amazing journal, don't we, called Veranda. Can you tell us about that?
Uh,
Oh,
you
sorry,
go,
Anne.
David. You go, David.
We do. It's a literary journal and art journal that has been going for almost 40 years. It's student run. So that means in your third year of your degree or your major, you can apply to be part of the editorial team or the production team of the Veranda for that year. It comes out every year. And there is a board that goes with Veranda that helps the editorial team put together that work, and it involves, calling out for work, editing work, accepting work, having a launch, all of those sorts of things that a professional journal does, design, printing, all of that stuff. So you can get that side of the equation whereby you're part of the production, but also, of course, as a literature or writing student, you can submit work for publication in that year's journal. So it gives you a great opportunity to get, runs on the board, as it were, as a writer before you have even finished your degree. And as I say, it's a long-standing journal. It's had it doesn't only publish students, so it's a way of getting your work with sometimes very highly regarded writers such as Helen Garner has published in Veranda. So there are lots of positives there, whichever angle you come at it.
Yeah. The other thing that I don't want to forget to mention, because it's a question that's come up in the other sessions that I've been in today, and I know that this is something that we do in this area as well, and that's online study. We were talking before we kind of came on air today about, what it means, the kind of experiences that we have as part of a pandemic. Tom, I know that you've done some study online. What was it like to study things like children's literature and literature online?
Yeah, well, look, the best thing that the pandemic has potentially had for universities is it's digitized a lot of our libraries. So I believe our in-person library has something like 1.4 million resources, and the online resources is up to 5.4 million, I think. It's incredible, which means that all of the resources that I need for my studies for these units are available online for me, which is, it makes it so much easier than having to fight over the 1 or 2 copies at a local library. But yeah, it's absolutely been pretty smooth of a transition to and from online and in-person learning. Deacon's been doing distance learning for over 40 years now. So something like writing an essay distance isn't as difficult as it may seem, and it definitely shouldn't be something that should instill any fear in anyone. The education is still really high quality.
I think it's been a real opportunity for students. Like, I know that you're on campus at the moment, but there have been times when you've needed to go home as well and continue your studies. And I think for students, there's that capacity, isn't there, to kind of be part of a cohort that's not confined in any way to just, being in one particular, place at any time.
Yeah, definitely. And the great thing is that whilst you're studying online, you're still able to meet people, and you're in the same boat. Everyone's emailing and messaging each other and saying, did you want to catch up for a Zoom study session? And that sort of thing. You can still make those friendships and have the meaningful conversations. It's just over distance as it is.
We are almost out of time, but I want to throw quickly to Anne, because we have some other places where our listeners can find out a little bit more information about us, don't we? And look, I know I said at the beginning of the session today that people are very welcome to send us an email, but of course we have a fabulous blog too, don't we?
We do. So if you do want to see what activities we're doing currently or have done in the past, go to the Writing, Literature and Culture blog. That's at Deakin. And we also have a fabulous Twitter account as well. So you can get even little snatches of us and then come along to one of our events, whether they're a reading or a launch. Come and see what we do. you know, come and see, you know, what Veranda's doing at this time, you know, Worldly zine as well, our partnerships with Overland. Yeah, you know, so come and check us out.
Yeah, and there's a great opportunity for people to do that for our physical open days, which are going to be happening, I believe, in August. And I want to make sure that people know that even today, people will continue to be on the live chat to take your questions for a little bit longer. I know that we didn't quite get to every single question that came up, although they were all fantastic. I want to take the opportunity, because we've run out of time, to thank all of the panelists here today. Thank you to Anne, to Tom, to Chris, and to David. And thank you to everybody that's joined us, sent us through some questions. We very much look forward to seeing you studying with Deakin, and hopefully in writing, literature, and gender and sexuality studies.